time now to talk all things Italian football, and for her debut on the show this week, very excited to say that Nicky Bandini joins us. Nicky, welcome. Great to have you with us. Let's start with Cristiano Ronaldo. Where else? Of course, he's been talked about so much recently. Put that statement out there last night. How was that received in Italy, and what's the latest?
I find it fascinating how it's been received in Italy, because initially there was this big wave of reports of Ronaldo clarifies his future, says that he's staying, and then you read the statement and it doesn't say that at all. It's actually very ambiguous, and I think there's a realization that sort of followed that initial wave of reports saying, oh yes, he's going to stay, and that's the end of it, and people realize actually this doesn't clear up anything at all.
Yeah, I was saying on our Good Morning Transfer shows earlier that it was a very lengthy statement, but it didn't really say much at all. Where do you think his long-term future lies? Of course, he's got 1 year left on this deal at Juve.
Yeah, it's very much a question about his long-term future, because his short-term future, I think, will be at Juventus, simply because who else is going to take on the €30 million a year salary that he's carrying right now? It's hard to imagine anyone in European football taking that on. I think that the next step depends on him. There's obviously an emotional pull to go back to Sporting and perhaps end his career where it started, and I think it's definitely on the table for him. But he might yet choose that new adventure, going somewhere like Major League Soccer, somewhere like America, to do something completely different before he winds it down. So I think it's still too soon to know what he would like to do in the long run. I think this season, if he had the option, he would like to go somewhere else and still for a Champions League trophy. He just doesn't feel like the feeling is there at Juventus anymore. But I personally can't see that happening.
Yeah, MLS, that would be a good shout. I'm sure they'd absolutely love him over in America. Nicky, got to talk to you about Tammy Abraham as well, who has, of course, joined Roma. Some brilliant scenes as well at the airport in Rome. It seems like the fans are really going to take to Tammy Abraham.
Yeah, there's a lot of excitement about Tammy, and I think it's understandable, because Roma have needed this sort of freshness, this sort of newness for a long time. They've had Edin Dzeko as their striker for such a long chunk of time now, and he's been brilliant, but he has been getting older, he has been getting slower, he has been getting injured more often. And the one thing that they've never really managed to do, even while renewing that squad, bringing in quite a lot of players over the last few years, is find even an alternative to Dzeko. And now you move on from him with a player who is fast, who is young, who's going to play off the last shoulder of a defender, which is something that Roma really haven't had in, gosh, it feels like at least a decade since they've had a striker like that. So it's really an exciting signing for Roma, and I think they're enthused as well, just that it's someone young, someone with their future ahead of them. And frankly, you know, even the fact that it's an English player coming to Serie A, which has happened a bit more in recent years, but isn't a direction of travel that we're so used to seeing.
You say an exciting signing, an English signing. Can you see Jose Mourinho bringing up any other players from the Premier League to Roma?
I'm not expecting much more from Mourinho. They have Roma provided fixes at most of the positions that he wanted: goalkeeper, right back, and now obviously up front they brought in Shomurodov as well to play behind the attack. So he has been given options in the positions where he felt that he was lacking. I think at this point, any further transfers probably rely on continuing to clear some of the big wage earners that they've got off the books. So Dzeko was a huge one in that regard, and really opened up this possible move for Tammy Abraham. I think anything else might require someone like Javier Pastore to be moved on, again, to just free up the funds, because Roma, like a lot of clubs in Italy, even though they're now the club that has spent the most in Italy this summer, don't have a huge fluidity of funds to do much more than that.
And elsewhere, we've been talking a lot about the Fiorentina defender Nikola Milenkovic on this show. West Ham, the club who he's been heavily linked with. What's the latest there?
It seems like that West Ham link is gone dead. West Ham are looking elsewhere now. It seems that Tottenham might be interested. Tottenham certainly have an interest in Dusan Vlahovic, and especially if, maybe only if, it's not entirely clear if they would pursue this if Kane stays, but certainly if Kane leaves, Vlahovic will be very possibly the number one target. And it seems like the conversations that are going on around Vlahovic are already sort of integrating Milenkovic as part of a package deal to get, I get the impression this is partly about value for Tottenham as well, thinking that they can get those two players together. Perhaps you can negotiate a fee that seems more reasonable for both of them than what you would be paying for Vlahovic on his own, at least at Daniel Levy. He's a really talented young defender, 23 years old, has heaps to offer, really impressive for 23 years old. I think he's already got 30 caps for Serbia and just reads the game so well. I think he'd be a really smart signing for any Premier League club. But at the moment, the West Ham link has gone cold.
Right, that is interesting. Nicky, I do want to ask you about another, I suppose, potential incoming to the Premier League, the Torino defender Lyciano. Watford in talks to bring him to the club. What's the latest there?
Yeah, interestingly, another young Serbian defender, but that one is definitely under negotiations. He's again very impressive for his age, slightly different in his style, more aggressively anchored, someone who really likes to step out of defence and go pursue those opportunities to cut out attacks and to beat an attacker to the ball. So a similar situation in his sort of age and profile, but a different type of player. And I think that that is under negotiation. That's something that definitely could come to fruition in the next few days. Although, as we see with all of these transfers, things that can look like they're happening one second can get dropped the next. It's something that's under negotiation at least.
Yeah, we know all about that here. Just quickly as well, a word on Manuel Locatelli, who is on his way to Juve. Some midfield they've got at Juve now.
Well, that was absolutely the weak point for them last season. They've got a host of options up front, and especially in the sort of areas. Federico Chiesa, Dejan Kulusevski, Federico Bernardeschi reasserted himself at the Euros. But the middle of the park, having someone who can just put their foot on the ball and dictate play, that was really the biggest weakness of Juventus last season. And I think never really managed to replace Miralem Pjanic after he left. Artur, who came the other way from Barcelona, was supposed to do it, but the feeling hasn't quite been there yet. So Locatelli, who had a brilliant Euros, who is someone who can actually be a bit of a hybrid, can do that job, can also play box to box. I think it's a brilliant signing for Juventus and perhaps fixes the biggest weakness in a team that was already probably going into the season as favourites, given the departures at Inter.
Nicky, brilliant stuff. Thank you so much for coming on to Transfer Talk this afternoon. Lovely to speak to you.